Hey, everybody. Welcome. This is kind of a new thing that I've been wanting to do for a while. And I am joined by two people that I consider friends, good friends. One of which I've met in person, the other not yet. But Michael Wachter is here, and he's the other half of this channel still to me. Um, we talk often, and like I go over a lot of ideas of things that we want to do in the future. And so we're finally doing one of these things. And we are going to be breaking down the Netflix series Midnight Mass. And also joining us is Nish, the lovely Nish, who I've met in person and who has her own podcast, The Cosmic Salon. Check it out, where all podcasts are sold, but it's free. So and I really like the balance here, because the three of us, we're all into the same types of things, but we all have our own unique way of approaching it. And so I think that really helps to bring out a bigger picture of what's really, going on, what's embedded within certain art and certain films and TV shows that we watch. There's just so much stuff in there that causes you to think and to contemplate some pretty heavy ideas. So anyway, the show Midnight Mass on Netflix is essentially seven like hour-long episodes that begins with a small town, an island town, very isolated. And it's in despair. It's depressed. People are ailing and aging. They're sick. They're poor. There's a lot of economic devastation that has taken place, and a lot of ecological stuff going on as well. So you really get the sense that this is a town on its last leg, and it's like in its death throes. And they have a church on the island, St. Patrick's. And of course, the priest, the Monsignor there, has been sent off to the Holy Land on this pilgrimage. And while he is there, he wanders on the road to Damascus. So already there's like a biblical parallel that's playing out throughout the show with the events that will be occurring. And so the priest goes into this cave, but it's more like an old temple or something that had been buried by sand that was uncovered by a storm. And he goes in, and there is a winged creature that drinks his blood and then has him drink its blood. And he is reborn as his best self, at the peak of his youth and vitality. And he journeys back to the island, and he brings with him this angel that, he believed it to be an angel of the Lord that had blessed him with this gift. And he takes it back in this old steamer crate, and he passes himself off as a replacement priest for the aging and old priest that he used to be when he left, as to not arouse suspicion. And so that's kind of where this begins. And he begins to put the angel's blood into the communion wine during the masses that he's conducting. And then he himself begins to get the urge to drink blood. And the people in the town begin to heal, though, from this blood. People have a girl that was in a wheelchair ends up being able to walk, and people start getting younger and younger. And not everybody, but one woman begins to reverse her aging, and her Alzheimer's vanishes. So there's all of this healing going on. And it's not just in the physical either. It starts like relationships and, trauma that has been not dealt with is coming to the surface, and people are starting to deal with their issues and to reconcile relationships. A lot of deep work going on while this healing is occurring. And it eventually culminates into this final mass where everybody is essentially turned into an immortal, to serve, to become one with God, and to let God's will flow through them. And they are not to, like, they don't have any guilt when they drink blood of others, because they feel like they're doing God's will. So it was really an interesting take on the classical tale of vampires and vampirism. They went out, they never even used the word vampire. It was never mentioned. It wasn't even hinted that that was something that was part of their lore. It just felt like everyone was oh yeah, it's all biblical. Sure, it's an angel. And the way they sold that is by quoting different scriptures, which was brilliant, how they wove that together to really show you how perception drives reality. And not everybody's going to be on that same page. And so there was certainly dissonance among the islanders about what was happening. But I found it like completely fascinating. And one of the big takeaways, and then I'll throw it out to you guys. I noticed that as I was watching it, especially rewatching it, after even just a short period of time, I think it was maybe 2 months ago or something that I first watched it. And I started seeing layers of interpretations. There's a very base level way that you could look at this film or this, it's basically like I forget the word, mini series, right? Because I don't think they're going to make a season 2. But the way that you can interpret that, whether that be, that this is like actually an angel, and wow, it really looks a lot like a vampire, and I don't really know what's going on here, and these people seem all fucked up, and but there's other stuff in there as well. Like I saw the when they were going around to the people's houses that hadn't taken the bite, right? And they were ripping them out to bite them, if you know what I'm talking about. And like that was there. That was definitely communicated through that scene, and like the whole feel of that, the pressure to join, to become one of these people. But then like I also saw like these are like certain layers of understanding, and they operate at a base level. So we're talking about fear and anger, generally the two emotions that are going to be operating at that interpretation. So you're watching this and you're thinking, oh my God, this is satanic propaganda. I'm so angry at this. That kind of that frequency. But then you look deeper into it and you can see that a lot of it's metaphor and allegory, that we're not even talking about vampires and blood. We're really talking about an alchemical process that is happening inside of a person. And these people are just expressions of how that is expressed. Like the whole diatribe that the one girl has when she's at the very end, when she finally answers what happens when you die, her whole explanation is like, very much in line with a lot of esoteric thoughts on death and the afterlife. So, I mean, there was so much stuff that was being communicated in this show that it just deepened. I probably, if I watched it a third time, I would find a lot more in there. But I don't know. It's like we think about programming, and a lot of people in this community talk about, certain media like movies and TV shows, and that it's predictive programming. But we never really, we always assume that that's like a negative thing. And I'm saying, what if it is predictive programming? What if it is just programming all different things? And whatever frequency that you happen to be resonating at or vibrating at that point in time, that's what you're going to connect with. That's the message that you're going to get out of the show. And I mean, it's even down to like, I just watched it because it's pure entertainment, because my vibration is like way down here. And that's it. That's all I do is just watch stuff and laugh and have a good time. But, you know, you can connect with these deeper levels as you sort of raise the frequency of your thinking. It opens up your perceptions of things. So that's what I found very profound about it, was how it worked on so many different levels. And not to mention that the acting was very, very good. So I don't know. Anyway, you guys, whoever wants to jump in first.
I'll go ahead. I want to say thank you for having me here, Michael and Eric. I am thrilled to be here, and I'm the one that knows both of you in person, the lucky one. And so this has been something we've been talking about doing, and I hope we do more of these. I'm very excited that this is the first breakdown we do. I have a passion for this series, and it is, like you said, a mini series, I believe, just a one-time event. And I think they probably should let it be that way. Uh, this is a very potent bit of how do I say this? Symbology released onto the public. And of course, it's released under the guise of fiction, where a lot of uh, freedom is allowed to bring us into something that allows us to expand our consciousness by the very act of not having to buy into realism, because then that engages a certain part of your brain, and then you start analyzing it too deeply as far as this ain't real, this ain't real, this ain't real, according to your parameters of what real is. So with that, I just took notes as you talked here, Eric, and I'm just going to follow through with what I was feeling and moving on with. So initially, yes. So we've got the island, and I believe it was out here in the Pacific Northwest. I can't recall, or maybe it was the Northeast. It was one of these like American islands, like either out by Nova Scotia or out here in the San Juans. I think it was Nova Scotia, wasn't it? Do we know? I think they actually said. I can't recall, but anyway, it's its own space, it's its own place, and it is ill, as far as it is aged, it's falling apart. The people were leaving, and we open with the scene of one of the youths from the island had left. You know, this is the children are what bring us into the future, move us forward down a timeline. And so, you know, one got out, and he's out there in the world, and this whole situation happens for him with an accident, and we are introduced into uh how we're going to move through the whole thing. There's a death that happens. We are not sure what's going on with it. There's a lot of mystery there, but there's an element of sparkle, there's an element of shine, and there's an element of, how do I say this? Sin, because there is a lot of religious uh, mythology around this, in particular Christian mythology. So the town is ill and dying and fading away. It's an island set away from the collective. It's in the water. There's fishing issues and all this stuff going down. And there are, I don't know what they call those little adjacent little islands, but there's something going on in these other spaces where the youth of the town would go and congregate and be youth and do their thing. And there was a little bit of substance stuff, kind of that, but the youth were like a handful of people. So we get this idea that it's illing, and then we have this priest gone away to the Holy Land on his holy journey, and we find ourselves in the desert, and we find ourselves at the brink of death, at the moment of transfiguration, and almost beautiful. It's this appearance coming to move this being into a new place, a new form, a new life. to be resurrected, to be reborn. And this angel of light, this angel of mercy, looks very much like a lot of people who study angelology. There's a quality of it that is not gendered. There's a quality of it that is scary. There's a quality of it that has compassion. And this we see all this play out. And our good priest becomes Lazarus. He is brought forward from the dead again by the holy blood, by the holy sacrament, by the idea within the gift of the blood and the gift of the sacred communion. And that becomes the gem that sparkles and sets off a light that illuminates the rest of the story. We've got the ill town separated from everything else. And so, of course, with the great miracle, the great gift, and who are we talking about when we talk about miracles and healings? We're talking about what set Christ apart from others were his miracles. And this is how you become a saint in the church, is there have to be miracle play here, because we're looking at a Christian narrative ultimately. Or Abraham study, you realize that that is the crust over some special that encompasses all the way back with all the religions, but that's the current crust. And so he he travels back to the Sycamore Island as a young man, transformed, transfigured, but not as the man he came as, because really what happens when we transform? The caterpillar is no longer a caterpillar, it's a butterfly, it's a moth, it's something different, it's the same but different. So he has to play this off, and I think this is an important thing to get our chops on. And so moving forward, and we'll dial down on all this later, I'm just going through the notes, as I said, that I just wrote. So I think the mass is a big deal here, and we are told from the get-go, midnight mass. Well, in the Catholic Church, midnight mass is is an amazing mystical event to behold. It's something that I, as a non-Christian, love and participate in when I'm around cathedrals or any large basilica or something like that, because it's moving. It's absolutely moving. And if you allow yourself to fall into the current of it, you can find yourself in a religious experience, and you do not have to be Christian. These things are above all types of religion. This process is above that. And so we're looking at a spiritual advancement. And this is now where the miracles come in. We have the core miracle, but the miracles come in here with the sacrament that is given. The body is the blood is the life. And we start to see these miracles happen, as Eric, you've presented already. The old and infirmed are becoming youthful again. The those that cannot walk can walk again. And again, we have the savior stuff coming in, the bright light of that which is coming in and reinvigorating an ill town, an ill island separated from everything else. And so I'm going to circle back around to animals, because this is a very key component here. We do have some very key scenes in here that need to be looked at for sure. When the one of the key players, we don't realize it at the time that she's the daughter. And so there's another sin here. There's another original sin here that's going on. And we get an idea of star-crossed love. We get an idea of what's behind the curtain of a small town, what's behind the curtain of established religion, and what is the realness behind love at such a deep level that it can permeate rules and regulations and shake a priest off of his path. And we're talking about the good stuff here, not the nasty ill stuff that is everywhere in culture right now. We're talking about love of the heart and not nasty ills that have been done by the church. So there's a point where the blood gets examined and the light informs this very key character that, you know, the vial blows up and all this, that there's a light sensitivity here. This is a very big deal when we start looking at the Lazarus mysteries. And so I'm just going to leave, I'm dropping as you did, Eric, I'm just dropping stuff here. And so when we start looking at life is a program, life as a program, free will and connection to spirit is where we are not programmed. Those of us that have the holy gift within us, we come into the transience of life. We come in as an emanation from source. We are not pre-programmed ultimately. We come in with a sense of free will, and there is a process of learning that goes on. Transfiguration, transcendental experiences that inform us further as to the path we are on. And much like dreams, the more lucid you are, the more real life becomes. And we can go off in many directions there, but I want to come back to when we start seeing, we get deep into this narrative and all this other stuff happens, but at the point where the town is going to be fully brought into the the midnight mass, uh with those that have taken the blood, the sacrament, the Kool-Aid, if you will, uh we start to see people for what they really are. What we notice is that a lot of them turn absolutely animalistic, completely savage, and they lose the conditioning, the finesse, the decorum of their human selves, and revert into animalistic traits, bloodthirst, and high predator energy. Squeeze the fruit. Is a bitter fruit. This is a sour fruit. This is a tainted fruit. We saw those that are able to control it and to move into a higher space. The priest is one. And the ability to control the animalistic nature becomes part of this. It becomes part of life. It's part of this story that we are immersed in here. This is how we move forward under the pressures of animalistic, materialistic, uh, all of this carnal stuff, especially when we're looking at context of this religious angle, right? Or angel. And it is never told to us that this is a vampire. This is an angel of light. And I think that they did a great service in presenting this narrative in that way. There is no separation from where I come from within the angel of light and the core of what became in terrible slaying the vampire. And the vampires of noble blood, the vampire is old, there's a certain set of genetics, they're born, etc. There's a big deal here, and we can go into that later. But I really wanted to point out that I will know you by the fruit you bear. And look at how terrible some of those people turned out to be. Now, with time, who knows? They would have been able to come into a sense of refinement, but clearly upon their transfiguration, they were not, many of them. And that shows how little work was done. And then I want to move into the golden dawn of this. So we see a core couple within this narrative on a bridge as the dawn rises. This is the golden dawn. This is the birth and the death all at one time. This is the annunciation of something new and the sacrifice of self to move into a sense of higher existence. They did not want this dark gift. This gift became the uh, classical idea of being a dark gift, and that it was ultimately not a good thing. And so we've got that black blood, red blood narrative going out. Black goo, red blood, oxygenated blood. And that's another thing to riff off of later. And then I want to look at that moment where we see those leaving the island, the couple that leave the island on the lone boat. We've got the fisherman reference going on. And what do we have? The sacrifice of the maiden as she's allowing herself to be given to this angel of light or dark, wherever your perception is. And she pierces through his membrane, in which he is able to, or it is able to fly away. Well, so we have the sacrifice of the maiden, even though she is, and she was at one point, there was this whole pregnancy thing going on, and we've got this idea as well tagged along. And then what we see at the end is very, very Paradise Lost, is very Faustian in a way. We've got the devil falling from the sky, the morning sun, the golden dawn comes up, the angel that can barely fly, damaged by the maiden that gave herself up to that, to it, to the process, and it falls down in flames, the fallen one, the fallen angel. And that's kind of where I am going to toss this off to our good Michael Wachter.
Well, that was lovely. Thank you both for your thoughts there. This is wonderful, and it's good to be here. Good to talk with you both again. And I'm just going to give a quick rundown as you both did, and then I'll leave a lot of open ends as you both did as well. One thing I noticed when watching it, well, the first scene, is you see red and blue lights, the lights of a police car, and there's an accident, and the light is shining off the symbol of the fish on the back of Riley Flynn's car, who's one of the main characters. Now, there's also a song playing, a Neil Diamond song, and it's called "The Grass Won't Pay No Mind," which I find interesting. I can talk about it more later, but the green comes to mind in this instance, and that'll be a later theme. Riley comes back to the island with a green blazer. You have the priest comes with a gold one. He was supposed to be wearing green on that first day. Now this is also Aaron Green is the love interest of Riley here. So these are all really interesting things that come into play later. But what I found, what first struck me was this is a reference to Philip K. Dick, because the 2-3-74 experience that Philip K. Dick had on it, which unlocked something in his mind or created this download of information, and which helped him write a lot of his experience to him was he wrote his exegesis based around these experiences, and that one in particular. So that struck me right away. You also had the fish being the symbol of Jesus, of resurrection, and we have a death taking place and we have the song playing by Neil Diamond, and I don't remember exactly the lyrics, but it has something to do with God calling someone, right? And that's interesting to me because you have this death and life aspect. He's also so he moved out of the town, a degraded town, something that was kind of going downhill, and they used to have a lot more people, and people left. There was an oil spill. We have the same ideas that you guys have eloquently expressed about this island. But as he leaves, he I'm not sure where he goes. I think it's Illinois. I think that's on the license plate. But he rises in trading on the trading floor and has a startup and does this. He has this Silicon Valley success. So he has a lot of money and nice cars and things, and he has this fall and ends up in this car accident in which he kills a young woman, and this is something that will haunt him throughout the series, and probably the not the cause, but I guess the
Like motivation, maybe?
maybe, yeah, maybe not. Well, I don't know if it's motivation, or it will determine a lot of his decisions throughout the series. I think this happening. He ends up going to prison for 4 years. So you have this, and when he gets back, so does the young priest. So they both have these experiences beforehand, and I think they are very connected, but they make two different decisions with what they're faced. They're both faced with the same thing. Riley Flynn is the first one turned. Uh, so, and this is interesting too, and we could get into um, whether Monsignor Pruitt was actually transformed yet, because I don't think he was. He just drank of the blood. He didn't die yet. And death is something where you come back from the veil, and then whatever this blood is that is bound to this creature or angel ends up being a part of you. And whether it is only like it is a living thing that lives outside of the creature as well, but the creature is the habit. That's where it inhabits, like the creature inhabits the blood and the living creature, because if you know it, actually I won't get into the end. We can talk about that later, but I'll tell you why later. I think that. But getting back to the opening scene, we have this flickering light on this fish symbol, and we also have the license plate being N2N, and then there's a Lincoln picture of Lincoln, and 3T2. Now, I always look at numbers and letters, as you guys know, and I put them through my system in my head, and I see what references that number has. And N2N would be 32, and 3T2 is 27. So I'm seeing 32 is light, and that's one word. And then 3T2 is God. So God's light I'm seeing, and I'm seeing like these red and blue. And this is just giving me ideas as I'm first watching this. And which comes into play, God and light, in later in the series, and light being what this dark entity's blood, or I would not saying dark as in bad, because I don't think of it like that, but it's sensitive to light, and we see this later, and that's the demise of the angel eventually, and we can infer that by the end when Lisa starts to not be able to feel her legs again while they're in the boat, and I think that's a tip off to what ended up happening. But I'll have your guys' opinion on that later. Let's see. Well, there's so much, and if I think about it, when I first saw, I mean, the acting's amazing. It's really great. There's a few people that I really loved and loved to hate as well in the series. What is her name? I think her.
The sister.
Yeah. What
Mhm.
was her name?
I can't recall. Eric.
You
Because
mean the
she is
actress's
just
name?
fantastic.
Yeah, her name in the
I think
series.
her name's Samantha. Bev Keen, right?
Bev
She was
Keen.
amazing.
Bev Keen. Yeah, just unbelievably great.
Amazing.
And just so good.
Well, Michael, I
But
want to say something real quick. Do you care if I inject right now, or do you want to keep going?
please, both of you can inject at any point, because I jump around a lot. I'm not giving like a time, like, you know what I mean. I'm not following a trajectory. I'm willing to deviate.
Well, you had mentioned the red and blue lights and the fish, and I remembered when I saw that scene, I remember thinking to myself, something's being signified here. But as you're talking, I started to envision the red and blue as representing the two pillars. Essentially Pisces got hit by Aquarius, and Pisces is dead, and so the Riley character in a sense could be looked at as Aquarius ruling the reality right now, and the religion of Pisces, right? The church and all of the things that it sort of stands for are starting to burn away. They're dying out, and something new is being born in its place. And so you see that cycle of death and rebirth like all throughout the show. But that's just one more layer that I started to see as you were talking.
Absolutely. And you guys know my number system a little bit, but all the twos, which are your left pointer finger, it's B, J, and R. And I think of J as Jesus, and I think of B and R as blue and red, the border colors. So this is all of those symbols in that one symbol, with the blue and red flashing on the fish, which represents Jesus to me.
And his last name is Finn.
Yes. Well, red, right? Has to do with red.
Yes.
And and I think the two opposing forces here are Riley, the red, and the Monsignor Pruitt being the blue. And he does wear a blue, what do they call it? Frock? Do they call them frocks? Anyway, those are important symbols too. The clothes he's wearing and the colors of them throughout the series. But I haven't actually gone through it enough to write all that down, but it's very, very important. So these two symbols, well, three symbols basically. You have the border colors, blue and red, the opposing forces. You see, like even in politics, you're blue and you're red. This is your opposition to create the two sides of the magnetic field, your north and south. This is how power is created. It's about circuitry, and it's about power and motion and energy.
And we've seen it, of course, in the zeitgeist through the Matrix as well, the pills.
Yes, absolutely. This is why I always say, like, take both at the same time, see what happens. I just always like the middle path, right? And if you guys want to talk about Matrix, oh man, I've got a lot to talk about when it comes to that, but that's, maybe for another time.
We should go there in another one with the new
Yeah.
one because I just watched it. So
Yeah.
Same here. I would love to do that.
that's our next one, everyone.
Oh my God. Yeah. Like yes, please. That'd be lovely.
They're all going to tie in together anyway. They always do.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of, like, there are so many layers in here, and like, I don't know where to go sometimes, but let's talk about next. So like a big symbol, the chosen, the 144,000 chosen. This is a big symbol with Monsignor Pruitt as the chosen people, and he's giving the blood of the angel to all of them, and he really believes this is the army of God. And it's warlike, they're going to take back, and this is kind of interesting, and you see it, the subtle symbol right off the bat that I noticed was when the sign for church, they were putting up the letters or the words, and some of the letters were numbers, and that to me was it was pretty
Yes.
obvious right away. It was 144, the ones and fours. See, now I'm going to get into the name a little bit too, because midnight mass, midnight equals 88, and mass is 57. 88 of this in like Back to the Future, you have to hit 88 miles per hour. Also, it's not time travel itself, it is that point in between the worlds where you hit that threshold. And we have time travel happening in this series. You're reversing age. So I find that very interesting. And midnight is right between day and night, right? Like you have midnight is like the start of the new day, end of the old day. And we see this. So, and both midnight and midday are both, 12 noon. You've got this 12 times 12 being the 144,000. And also in your sign, you have this ones and fours. Now, midnight, like M in my system, is 14. So you have 1 and 4, and mass it starts with M as well. So you have your 1 and 4. So a lot of 57 is mass. I see 5 as a human number, phi ratio. It's this plays out in the pentagram. This ratio is full of pentagram, and M, E, and U are right humanity, and 7 is like 7 represents the gods of the world or the gears of the world in my system. So it's also war. So you have this war, this humanity's war, reality, so that we can put an energy to be transformed. And 8 is, if I eat something, I am transforming energy from one place to another. So 8 has always been, well, it is PHX, which is Phoenix. So this is the transformation of energy from one place to another. It's the resurrection. And that's dual in midnight 88. So this, as was all like before I even watched it, I was thinking along these lines. You also have 88 plus 54 with your 144,000 chosen, and the one that rules them all, God, you know.
Yes. Yes.
So all really cool for me watching this film, the series, and just so much more that I won't get into, but mm, this feeling of the chosen type. And now I feel like a lot of this is love driven as well. You know, Monsignor Pruitt is coming back to give life back to the one that he loves, to start fresh. He would have given anything to go back and have a family. Now, if I'm guessing most people have seen this, so you'll know what I'm talking about. But his daughter never knew that he was the father. So, and he mentions that you would have asked me, I would have thrown off this, you know, collar and had a family with you anytime. But, and she says, well, I wouldn't make you do that. And because he was a pillar of community. And I see this for him, it seems like he was the shaman of the village, right? Trying to revitalize uh, this dying town, and what it turned out to happen could be seen as like horrific as well. Like it gives you maybe pause too, to want time back, and the whole show seems to be saying like there are negatives to eternal life. There, you have to take something to give something. So this is a very strong theme to me. And you know, Riley's way of dealing with being changed and receiving this eternal life. And you know, obviously it's not eternal because you have death by the sun, which with the license plate I equate to God's light, right? So you have um, God's light can annihilate this everlasting youth once you turn, though. See, and a lot of people haven't turned yet, so they're able to be in the sun. And I found this kind of an interesting take. But once they die and are resurrected by the blood within them, then they are sensitive to light and it can kill them. And you see, I really loved how Riley made the decision uh, not to be, uh, I guess, under the control of another, because it is a force within you that gives you this eternal life. It's not yours entirely. You have the desires. There's other humans' blood, so life force. And you do have Monsignor Pruitt in the end regretting his decision. So this is an interesting thing. And it was love that pushed him to create this, to bring forth these happenings, I guess. But I saw him thinking that he could take this force and train it properly, you know, like it was a massacre at the end. Uh, and he got shot, so he couldn't help people, guide them, you know, be their guide in this way and actually fast. And I have keen on that because he was getting sick for no reason and having, you know, he's coughed up blood. I'm gonna let play.
Well, I just wanted to get back idea of thing. There's this thread of love that moves through, and it's love for we've got the star-crossed lovers in a
Mhm.
couple ways here, more than one story with Pruitt and they meet the Golden Dawn. There's this idea of the sister, again, I forget her name, the holy sister there that was taking care of him. And so you're suggesting you think she was poisoning him slowly?
Absolutely,
Yeah,
because she was
I
bringing out the poison, and you didn't know what she was doing it for. And
I
this is
thought so. I felt like she ultimately wanted essence to have him bestow the holy gift and then to move into this role. There was something there, and I haven't really dug down on that as far as my deeper feelings on it,
Mhm.
but I honed in on that and I thought it was something intriguing. It's obviously very significant. And there's this whole creator that how one destroys one way or another. So the Frankenstein kind of myth where you create it and then it
Right.
kills you, it's everywhere. Blade Runner, again, Philip K. Dick. And so there's something there going on with it. It always strikes me when we look at Luciferian stuff, because ultimately I think this is
Mhm.
a tale of Lucifer. And in that last scene, like I brought in that whole Paradise Lost and all this, where it's clear he's falling in flames. And I mean, it literally looks like the painting. And so, but if you're doing a crossword puzzle, right? If you're doing our Scrabble, L, Lucifer on one line, and you can go down love on another, and we can go all over with that, but they're connected. What is going on with this narrative? Lucifer loved the humans. It was his love that brought forth the rebellion. And there's a deeper narrative that ties into this. And especially since we were looking at Christian mythos throughout this whole thing from the beginning. And what was brought up here was this ending of the Piscean epic or Aeon. This is a big deal here, and it's at play. And at the core of all of this really is always going to be love. Lucifer brings the light of love to those that were not deemed worthy. And here we have this narrative moving forward through the Christ story. And here we have this narrative moving forward through the idea of transfiguration. And here we have this idea of this moving through transcendental realities. At the core, there is this essence, and this essence is the the uh the soma, if you will, or the manna. And it is that which one takes in communion. The blood is the life is the blood. And we see this in some of the invisible colleges with the idea of dreaming, and it's in the canon as well. And there's this whole idea of the second death in the canon. You die one death, but the second death is the real death. This is part of a Luciferian mythos. This is partly tied into the vampiric mythos, and the idea that he was partaking in the sacrament all along and became healed and was giving it to others and healing them. And so we have these miracles going on again. But to die the second death, lock of eternity. And there is this idea of those that will beg for death, but death will not come. Now, there's always an out with that, and there's always an out with everything because it's all a riddle to me. And of course, the out is the light. Ultimately, Lucifer, and in this case, this dark angel that we see, is trying to bring this gospel to the people of an ill land on the island in the waters. And it is the light of that wanting to bring consciousness to these people, to bring miracles, to bring healing. But at the same time, it's the light that kills at the same center point, at the 0 point of this, at this toroid that we're looking at of a narrative. So we bring light, it gives us life. Light, that which gave us life. Light kills that which gave us these miracles. And the miracles go away, as we see with Lisa in the boat. When that source goes, when the 0 point is meets a distortion and is canceled out, which I consider a balance, then it recalibrates everything. So that was the 2 cents I had for that particular part.
Yeah, that's spot on for sure. And I do find it interesting how they oh, I want to get into the cats too, but I'd like to see what you guys think of the cats. So I'll give a quick synopsis here of the cat issue, or the cat incident. You had a bunch of cats on this island. They don't know how they got there. There was a bunch, and they were just breeding like wild in this kind of marshland just off the island. Not off the island, but on one of the tips of the island. I can't remember what it was called.
Yeah, they're those things. That's what I was talking about. They're like adjacent.
Right.
With the tidal waters.
Yeah. So this is what the angel fed off, actually, for the first, probably until he started feeding off humans. But you had this big storm come through, and a lot of the cats were washed up. And this is kind of the first thing that was something strange that was happened before all this took place. And to me, the cat is representative of 3 and this chaotic force within nature, and as a balance to order. It can be seen as satanic as well, but I think the satanic principle is just a chaotic principle, and then God is an orderly principle. As with my number system, it's 27, which is a cube, represents the cube, a 3x3 cube, and 31416, which is approximation of pi. And so you have these 2 forces of the circle and the cube, or the square. And this is what I think squaring the circle has to do with order and chaos, and the balance of the 2. So the cat.
Can I ping on that for a second?
Please do, yeah.
That I just want to say, the cat is a predator. It's an apex predator when it's large.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
in the time of Jesus, when we have Egypt very, very much still doing an Egyptian thing over there, there was still at that time a reverence for Bast or Bastet.
Mm-hmm.
And this is at play here. I thought that the cat stuff on this, the catnip sub narrative here, subtext here, is extremely important. And that's all I wanted to add.
Absolutely. And it being 314 and the chaos that was brought to this town, well, you could say chaos, it looks like chaos to us, watching, is, what this angel feeds off in the beginning. So I found that very interesting. Cat's blood, right? Like that's what's sustaining it while on the island before it starts eating the humans on the island.
Yes.
So that's awesome. I loved that. And what was I getting at before? I was going to say something, and then I moved to cats.
It's also to be noted that I don't think he was there to prey on the humans. I think he was there to turn the humans. And I think that we saw some of that imagery. Of course, there are always sacrifices, and that's a big deal in this whole thing. We start off the whole thing with the sacrifice, and we end it with the revelation or revolution. You know, they're kind of hand in hand, those two words, in a weird way. They have a sweetheart deal of
Absolutely.
that coming through with the spirit of that girl drifting away like ash.
Absolutely. And I'm just, when I'm speaking of the angel, um, and I think there is an element of predator with this the creature for sure, or with the angel.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So when I say that, like I'm talking about, you're talking about cat as predator, right? It feeding off cats, and then you see it is very predatorial, but it is willing to give its life for servitude, and I believe it is that, to spread itself, because it is in the blood, and spreading the blood is spreading itself. And as he talks, Monsignor Pruitt, he says he hears the voice of the angel in his head, and that is the hunger, the feeding, and that sustains life. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I'm saying it's a predatory thing, and life feeds on life. We have when we eat, we're eating life.
Yes.
We are transforming energy so that we
Yes.
can sustain ourselves.
It's
So
all a
it is
food
the
chain.
circle. Yes, absolutely. So yeah, it's I loved it, and there's lots more. What were you? I was trying to think about what you were. Or Eric, you pop in here.
Yeah, there were so many motifs in this show that it became overwhelming at a point where I was almost confused as to really how to really look at this thing, because there's so many different angles that you can really look at this. I saw, the connection with the the road to Damascus and the story from the Bible about Paul, or Saul as he was then called. And he was, of course, steeped in the culture of his area, right? That what we would call Babylonian culture. But in Jerusalem at the time, he was a scholar. He was very much into the religion of where he lived and being a part of that, and all that entailed. And so, he was a Pharisee, and he went around, stoning people and trying to wipe out those that were continuing this heretical teaching of this Jesus guy. And Paul then encounters Jesus on the road to Damascus, where he's blinded by the light. Christ tells him, you keep persecuting me. And he turns him, right? He goes through a period of blindness. So he's in darkness for several days until a messenger comes and the scales fall from his eyes, and Paul has his third eye opened. He has this awakening, and Paul goes on to raise people from the dead. Paul goes on to heal the sick and do all of the things that Christ did and perform all the same miracles, and even more so. And he's persecuted, of course, and imprisoned. And how many of the other disciples are also, we know Peter also was said to have been able to heal just by being in his shadow. So you see these elements that are in the scripture. They're telling you that these people, Christ, the Christ, Jesus, taught these people how to do what he did. And that's what they were doing. And you see that depiction of what's going on in the show. This guy he goes into the cave, he's in darkness, and then the light, he all of a sudden he's awake now. But it's a process. I see, like you were talking about, he hadn't been converted yet. And Michael, you brought up Bev Keane poisoning him, which had occurred to me today or yesterday when I was watching it, that when he started coughing up the blood, it was the same thing that was going on with the dog, the guy's dog. And So it does appear that maybe she was poisoning him, and that's never really explained.
Can I jump in there for a minute?
Yeah, I
Eric?
just saw your message there.
Oh, that was from Michael. And so I wanted to, you spark something really important, and I'm so glad, because this was something I wanted to bring forward here. The woman that I call the sister, like a nun, that is, she struck me as a serpent. She struck me as the serpent, and I saw this Judas quality in her, and that's what I wanted to interject. What you were just saying brought all that forward, and I feel like this was the good point to interject that. So with that, carry on, because it's definitely sparking insight for me.
Can I just say too that Bev Keane, the actress, is Samantha Sloyan, which is SS, which is snake-like to me. It's
Yes.
yeah. So very, very good.
Slithering serpent, Samantha.
Oh, she was certainly a snake. I mean, but you can really empathize with her in a way too. She does seem like she has a firm devotion, but she definitely sees herself as more pious and more holy than everyone else around her. She really embodies the holier than thou archetype, this person that lives, but she also is twisting the scripture. So she's an opportunist in a way, because she's using the Monsignor until the point at which her agenda and his part ways, and she just can't stop herself. I saw a lot of the disciples and Christ and that whole thing being more like a secret society, in a way, because the disciples, there's 12, and maybe there's plenty of other deeper reasons for that. But you look at that, there weren't that many people that were going around doing what Jesus was said to have done, the miracles and such. So, you get the sense that it's a difficult process. And so you see that play out in some of the characters as they themselves are wrestling with what this means. And you see, I got the sense that in anything that you do, when you're trying to work on the self and go inward, and you're in the process of doing this alchemy, there does seem to be an element of danger if you're not ready, or you don't understand you haven't sufficiently worked through a lot of the darker elements of yourself, the dark aspects. And I think you see a lot of the characters trying to do that, right? Riley himself is struggling with what he has done and trying to come to terms and try to make amends, right? And repent. And so I think in a way, his decision, like Michael brought up, to sit in that boat, but he didn't do it alone. He wanted her to witness him. He wanted her to see it so that she would believe. And then, however we want to interpret him just turning into dust, did he transform into something else? I mean, it's very open for interpretation on that. But when he was with the Monsignor in the rectory, the Monsignor kept saying the word courage. And you get the sense that Riley's biggest problem was that, he was gripped by a lot of fear, and the fear of the guilt and all of these negative emotions that he carried with him. He used it in one moment. He tried to make those amends by being a sacrifice for this witness, to save some people from, going down a path that he thought was dangerous. And so I'm conflicted too about Riley. I mean, is his the more virtuous choice? Did he make the ultimate sacrifice instead of choosing, immortality or something amounting to immortality, the ability to heal and to live at a state of youth for eternity, and assuming you don't go out in the sun. I wanted to say something else too, because like this stuff was all over the place, but you guys had brought up several things that made me think of something that I've been recently reading, which is The Gene Keys by Richard Rudd. And I think it's part of like the human design movement. But there was a passage in the book talking about DNA. It says research into DNA has demonstrated that one of its more unusual electromagnetic properties is its ability to attract photons, elementary light particles, causing them to spiral along the double helix. It is this ability of DNA to weave light around itself that reveals its true hidden role within your body, to act as a superconductor whose sole purpose is to exponentially increase the frequency passing in and out of your body. This in turn leads to a complete transmutation of the fabric of your being. This very rare phenomenon is theoretically known as a transposition burst and involves the sudden and synchronized movement of thousands of DNA elements inside your body to new and different genetic locations. It signifies the extraordinary birth of a completely new kind of human being, Homo Sanctus, the sacred human. And to me, what we were witnessing, goes along with this. If you want to talk about what's going on with the blood of the angel, and what the doctor finds out is that it's very reactive to light, and so there is a transformation that's taking place in people's blood, but then exposed to light itself, maybe it's possible that what's happening is they're completely just, all of that energy within them is shifting to a different frequency of reality, and all that's left behind is the dust, the dimensional matter at this frequency that can't carry on. And so now they have this sanctified, this light body. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that in the mix because it really ties in with what we've been talking about with this show.
That's go ahead.
I just find that incredible. I want to read that. I'm just now getting into the human design thing. I'm late to the party, but everything that I'm learning, and now this that you're bringing forward, Eric, is ringing me so hard. I'm feeling it, and for me, it's almost negating all these other systems that I have, that I value them all, but this one's really got depth to it. This whole blood thing is bigger than people know. And it is, when we start looking at the nature of magnetics, when we start looking at the nature of the etheric field, when we start looking at the nature of repressive genes and double helix and all of this, that we start to get to the core code of what's going on, in my opinion. And this is starting to really inform us as to what is going on when we look at these mysteries that we're being presented with, like we are seeing played out in this fictional story that we're talking about tonight, Midnight Mass. So, Michael, what were you going to add?
Oh, I was just, what was I going to add? I just found that interesting, what you were saying about the life, the third death, basically, and the returning to light. I just found that quite interesting, and to um, to think about also Riley Oh, what was that?
Hey guys, sorry, my reception is really terrible. So everything you were just saying, Michael, was completely garbled, and then I got booted out of Zoom and just brought back in, but the recording is still going. So I don't think it'll be
Okay.
a big issue. It just
Okay, yeah, no worries.
didn't want to hear what you had to say.
If
Zoom.
you
We're
guys didn't
over,
hear that, then it's gone.
and it
I'll
was
never
good.
hear
We're over the
it.
target. That's all I think when things like that
Yeah,
happen.
yeah, it's
Do
possible.
you want to just summarize what you were saying? Because I mean, I think you have to go here pretty soon, and I think it's a good time to pivot because I wanted to talk more about blood in general, and like Nish said, take the stuff that we're being presented with and just really explore those concepts.
Yeah, okay. Well, I was speaking of, well, Riley's third death, and I would say, yeah, I don't know if he died twice, because see, this is where I'm not sure about, but well, hopefully you guys heard all that, but I was kind of explaining that last midnight mass where everyone was turning, and Monsignor Pruitt had been shot, actually, and he was shot by the one he loved. So this was like, and she felt betrayed too, by him in what he was doing, which is kind of an interesting thing. It seems that you have this duality between natural and unnatural, uh, living and death, but I don't see it that way necessarily, because obviously this creature or angel is a natural being itself, and its blood is maybe has some, like, I'm seeing this having to do with light and dark, and we sleep during the night, right? What if there is other types of blood and other people that are well, there is people that are more sensitive to light, and there are night owls, people that stay up, people that find the night time to be the right time. But um, it's all really fascinating to me. I kind of lost my train
You
with
were
that little
getting
thing,
into
but
something that was interesting, and of course, I couldn't help but think the freaks come out at night. I love that song. Anyway, you were talking about the parents. You started to get into them, and I think we
right,
overlooked them,
yes,
and we
yes.
should not have.
Okay, so also one thing about the parents, and this goes back to what I was saying earlier about the song that started playing while Riley was sitting. It was a Neil Diamond song. Another Neil Diamond song starts playing when they start to regain their strength, both Riley's parents. And this is like kind of a pivotal moment in the series, that you have this good feeling, that's bringing this joy of the miracles that take place, and what this blood can really bring to people in
I love
small
that song, by
doses.
the way. Holly Holy.
Solely, yeah. Oh, yeah, it's great. Yeah. So you have these, like, this life and death, and these, I would say, this anything in a large dose can be poisonous. And I think I get this feeling that the center path is the path for me. I hear this in lots of media I that I consume, and it is like you have this way of the darkness and way of the light, and I think somewhere in between is where we find our balance. And as humans, we all have dark sides and light sides, and so, like, this whole struggle between light and dark, and how um, this dark occurrence, something happening to Riley, during one of the like a Neil Diamond song, and then having this other Neil Diamond song with such light and beauty and uplifting feeling shows that they're so close, um, these two things, to me at least. And you can't have one without the other. So, having this eternal life does come at a price, and that could be the price of others' lives. But the parents, when they have this song, they're dancing around, and this is when uh, the husband like grabs Riley's mother, his wife, and starts dancing, and it's this great moment where you see the fruits of the blood and what it can do to the town and how it can revitalize and all this. And when they ended up turning, they found each other later because they didn't want, once they noticed what was happening and the mayhem that was taking place in the church during the last mass, they were trying to protect the people that were not wanting to take the poison. And this is the final, the poison was the killer that brought on the first death and the second life. So it's interesting, and that makes me even think more that he was also, Monsignor Pruitt was killed by the poison because it's something that worked.
I just want to throw in, because I kind of started this whole thing out with talking about the layers of interpretation of this show. And just to, as it is sort of expressed by what you're saying, is that good and evil, right? And then there's this balance between the two, the balancing of the darkness and the light. And these frequencies, look at how Bev Keane responds to being made, right? To being awakened. She misuses her power. She just completely is pulled in by the darkness of it all and is not able to balance it within herself. At the very end, at her last moment, she's digging a hole in the sand, in vain, because there's not enough time. And so, she certainly got sucked in. I just recently watched Star Wars, all 9 of the movies. And this whole theme is running throughout so many things I've seen, is this balancing between the light and the darkness, and that regarding both as equal, that, one isn't inherently better than the other, that they're both necessary, and that they serve a function in creation and within destruction, entropy, that there are frequencies that tend toward annihilation and destruction, right? But in that is also rebirth and creation, right? So they're intricately tied together. And that's expressed in the fact that you can look at something like this show and you can see multiple different things in it. Some people won't see what we see, and maybe we don't see what others might see. That's the beauty of it, is that it's like a frequency. And the more you learn how to adjust your own, which I think is what's happening with a lot of these characters, because ultimately everybody burns. Not one of them that got bitten, not one of them.
The kids.
But the kids didn't, they hadn't fully gone to that level. And that's
they didn't die the second time yet, or the first, die and be reborn a second time.
And the last line of the show is, "I can't feel my legs." And I got the sense that meant that the angel had died. The angel's blood and its power that it bestowed, it vanished when the angel fell. It could no longer sustain that, because there was a connection to the creature. That really is what was going on. It was the energy that the creature was giving them through its own life force. And now they were then able, at a level, it was like feeding them like a mother breastfeeds a child, and then they were finally able to feed themselves and to wake others and do the same thing. And yet they're two different beings.
Yeah, and this gets back to the choice, and this is really good. Thanks for bringing all that up, Eric, because it goes into what I was going to say about the parents. When they found each other again, they said it's possible to not feed. It's possible to have this hunger and overcome it. So I found that interesting because they were there. You had everyone else kind of going beast mode, just being taken over by their desires and their hunger, and not even realizing they were doing it, eating their family and this kind of thing.
Yeah, being almost like, in a sense, they are feeding off of people's energy. Like it recalled to mind the story of Christ in the wilderness, where he fasted for 40 days and 40 nights and was then, confronted by Satan, probably in a vision or, some other realm of experience. And there was like a promise made, almost like all your dreams can come true, but of course he saw past that deception. That was the false light, that was the illusion. And he said no.
That was the test for all his dreams to come true, in my opinion. It's like that's
Yeah.
Yes.
the door.
There's the children thing is a big thing through here. So in the vampire mythos, the children of the night is a term. And because you're reborn, and Anne Rice gave us this with the dark gift. And so you're reborn and you're now a child of the night, which I believe is Bram Stoker. And so you have this idea of that, of the dark side of it. And of course the children are what moves everything forward. Well, with this narrative at the end where she can't feel her legs any longer and we realize that he has been neutralized, that now it's an assumptive thing, but it seems logical. And so now she's back where she started. She was in between because she didn't die that death. And so she wasn't a child of the night, yet she wasn't a child of the day. And so when the angel came a child of the day, moving forward on the ship, on the in the birth of the boat, and through the sacred waters of the holy womb, which is the water, and moving forward into a new day, a new dawn, a new birth. And this gives us the promise of the future, of the day. But there's something in there that for me, when I was experiencing it, that there was all was not lost. Let's use that biblical term. And so there feels to me, and I'm not sure where I picked this up, that somebody still had the seed within them. And I don't know how that narrative would move forward, and how it I don't know what the core of the story was, what the book is, or anything like that. So I don't know how that narrative would work, but there's always a seed to the next stage. There's always day within night because we have the transition between one to the other. But this story leaves us with the child of day moves forward on the birth of the boat, through the waters of the womb, and there we had it.
Yeah, no, it's really actually it's quite interesting that Riley's brother was on a boat with another woman at the end, you know, because his end was on a boat with a woman. I just kind of picked that up now, but
It's
I think it
significant.
is. There's a new dawn, as you were saying. And I would say the blood's still in them.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
I
the feeling I get
absolutely.
is
I'm fully on board.
and we talk about that, right? Michael and Eric is the blood recessive
Yeah.
gene. So how does this move forward with the idea of how blood and genetic sequencing moves forward? The redheaded gene doesn't pops up every other generation, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Eye colors, etc. Where will this express into the future?
Yeah,
You also
absolutely.
get the sense that they are very much isolated from the rest of the world. So it's very reminiscent of how Israel was viewed as, you know, having to keep apart from all of these surrounding people to stay clean. But yeah, you look at this vibe of the town that everybody was, I don't know. I look at it as almost they're all the same person. They're like a collective, and they represent different aspects. And the two that are left on the boat, yes, very likely they have the new blood in them, carrying it forth. But it's like Adam and Eve. You know, it's all of these,
Yes.
the theme of resets and destruction, but those that carry forward, that, you know, bring that seed into the new era and the new world. Because where are they going to go? Everything's burned. Nobody's alive. Where are
Yes,
they
they
going
are
to go?
moving forward into the world of people. Absolutely. They're being born again into the world of the living because everything that they come from is now death. There's nothing left.
Yes. Hmm.
Michael, how much more time do you have left?
I got about, I'd say 10 minutes, and then I got to get ready.
That's about what I planned for, 2 hours. So
Okay,
sounds good.
perfect. So I just wanted to, you know, I had been looking at blood itself, and that's why I was kind of intrigued by how they worked this into the show. The doctor actually trying to study what was going on with the light and the blood cell. But I had been thinking about what exactly is happening. The sun is just radiating energy, waves, and we are receiving that. It's information. To me, it's like the energy, the light is simply gnosis. It's energy. And it, you know, photons, we are using photons to send data through fiber optic cables. So we know that light carries information, and the light is hitting and absorbing into our cells and into our blood and into our DNA itself. And our DNA being like a code that apparently can actually pull light towards it, like photons, and pull light and surround itself in light. I was thinking about when Moses, you know, all of the depictions of somebody who meets God, when Moses goes up to the mountain and he comes back down and he has to wear the veil because he's shining. And Nish, I know you like to talk about the shining ones, but
Yes.
the other thing about this show, which I don't think we really touched on, was that after they had changed, after the transformation was complete, their eyes changed. They were able to see things that nobody else could see. They could see energy. They could see the waveforms and the pulsating nature of reality. And they probably, if they had lived long enough, could have learned to harness that and use that. So there was potential there that I think at first they were just in awe of it, like a child. But as you grow, you know, you start to be able to utilize the energy around you. So I saw that there as well. You know, the
I
shining,
had this thought too.
the shining, the changing of the blood itself to almost radiate more light, and that our default setting is being surrounded by like a darker or lower vibrational energy that clouds the true light that we are capable of emitting.
I just wanted to draw a correlation to experiences I've had with dreaming and getting that second body, that dreaming body. When I first started lucid dreaming, my sexual desire was far too high for me to do anything else other than, like, I couldn't control it. And then through doing it more and more, I got a handle on that, and I could do other things within the dream, and more important things in my mind. But I think it was an important stage to go through that hunger too, and overcome it.
Yeah, I think that's an important aspect of that. The parents, the father saying that he was looking at everybody around him, and it seemed as if they couldn't control themselves and that it was some other force taking over, but he realized that he could temper it. And so it did have a positive light to it at the end. It wasn't all just doom and everyone's dead. I think you can't really look at it. That's one way of looking at it, but to me, that you really lose so much that's put into this show.
I was wondering why the heck he didn't have a blood drive before this. Like, what was he thinking? Turn everyone with no blood? Oh my God, disastrous. No foresight. Mhm.
The devil's in the details.
Yeah, yes.
It's all about the blood.
It is all
It
about the
is.
blood. And that is such a key component. And the more we learn, the more we're starting to realize this. And it's always been out there for us to see and encounter in all these amazing tomes and in literature. And one of the things that feels very prescient is what you were just saying, Michael. When you first started to lucid dream, you had to move through. So the very first thing is carnality. And we saw this with a lot of these that were turning in the series at the end. And it's the baseline of functioning. It's the very base. And you move from there, hopefully. I mean, hopefully that's part of it. We see that in the ascension myths. And ascension is a gritty process. Controlling of the beast within is paramount. And one of the people that really brings this forward is the great Herman Hesse in Steppenwolf, and coming to terms with, how do I move this energy up and forward and out? How do I emanate out from there? This is a great force, and I can find myself being magnetically sucked into it. And so the need to feed becomes such a paramount beacon in these narratives, that whether we're talking about the hunger of eating, the hunger of sexual desire, the hunger of power, the hunger of gnosis, whatever it is, when it's out of balance and it's actually taking over the core soul, the core being in process, then this is a red flag as far as where does one go with this. Hopefully, and like any good parent, and we look at this through, like, say, sacred higher eyes, any good parent, you allow that process to go forward, and hopefully the fruit of the loins is of good stock, as they say, and that becomes just a phase, and it moves into the next phase, and it moves into the next phase. But we see with these characters out there in the realm, especially in these mythos that we're looking at, and particularly in this, we get the idea of where one will go with it. So, uh, our main character, Mr. Finn, you know, he was carrying that burden. He was carrying a burden. He was in a successful life. Everything was going right for him. There was this whole sense of full on material realm bounty. And then he's confronted with what else is there by the opening scene that we see that you both have broken down so beautifully. And he transcends in the end to such an incredible hero in this story of transcendental experience. He moved from literally the dark to the light. And again, I'm one of those people that holds those things in balance. We need both cycles, but we see that he moved through both cycles and then became more than he was, ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Absolutely.
What was the letter he gave the priest? From dust we came, to dust we shall return. Is that it?
Yes, incredible.
Yeah. Great.
And such a profound truth that of course the priest understood it immediately, and that's why he reacted in anger. He himself didn't want to hear the truth that Riley was telling him, because he thought, you know, he was thinking himself better than Riley in a way, and couldn't understand Riley's choice and just didn't get it. And you know, I think when he read that note, it's like it really hit home, and he understood that Riley really did have some wisdom after all. But I've started to look at this show. I mean, the way they present this material, it's a great way to begin to start looking at things like this from a more balanced or objective perspective, without having to come into it with labels and all of the baggage that comes with labels. You know, even the way that they depict the church and the scripture, it wasn't even in a mocking way. You know, like some shows will do that, but they didn't do it that way. And the way that they wove all of the stuff into Christianity, I mean, you could have put it into any kind of religion. You could have woven this story into it, because I think it's a universal story. And like the death scenes where when Riley dies, immediately he's in the boat, but he's with the girl that he had killed. And you get the sense that he's being led somewhere. And then later he's then with, you know, the woman that he was in love with, and they're having that conversation back on the couch, but now she's answering him, whereas before she didn't answer him what, you know, from her perspective, what happens when you die. She was talking about the child that she had lost, but now, you know, they're both in this space, wherever that is. So you get the sense that even death is not what we're led to believe it is, and not what they were probably taught it was, you know, heaven or hell. You can definitely see they get away from that view of the afterlife, and they weave several different sort of philosophies of that into the show, which I thought was good. And it causes the viewer to really think about death and confront mortality. That more than anything, that part of the step of awakening is to confront one's own mortality and all of the fears that are deeply embedded within the core of our being, that we've carried from many past lives. You know, there's these fears that manifest somehow in our lifetime. And you see a lot of that represented, of people working through the fear and the darkness. So overall, I think this show is just really overflowing with a lot of good stuff. I can't really recommend it more.
I agree. I loved it. And I think it's absolutely relevant for the times we're in. It's so rich, and at some point I will revisit it, but there are so many other things to dive into. And with that, I can't wait to dive into the Matrix stuff with the two of you gentlemen. This has been a great pleasure.
Absolutely. Same goes here for me here. This has been really enjoyable. I love speaking with you both, and definitely Midnight Mass is rich in symbolism, and we could go on about it for hours more. But this has been really nice, and I'm looking forward to doing it again with you guys. And the Matrix, oh my God, great thing to
Yes.
do next.
Yeah, Midnight Mass gets 5 kisses from me.
I'm giving Midnight Mass 5 orbs to ponder.
I love that.
I don't know what I'll give
Yes,
it.
wow.
5 snakes to fondle. I don't know.
We've covered everything there.
Well, we didn't. That's
Fondle,
actually
there's a lot going on there.
that's actually something we didn't get into, but I did think about was, the church was St. Patrick's, and could get into the running out of the snakes out of Ireland and what that was really about. But thank you guys for doing this. And yes, we're going to have to find another time that works for all of us to do something on the Matrix 4, because there was a lot going on in that movie. And as many people as I've heard from that have seen it, and so many people just want to say that it was terrible and it sucked. Hey, I can see where you're coming from, but if you look at it that way, you're really missing out. And I would encourage everyone to just go back and rewatch things that you have watched before, but try to do it with a deeper and a different perspective and see what really comes out. You probably be really amazed. Anyway, thank you
Yes.
guys for being here and giving of your time. I'm so grateful for that.
Thank you, Eric.
Yes, thank you, Eric. And I can't wait till we do it again.
Well,
Same here.
until then.